First up tonight is a gentleman I have, I think I had on the program once long ago, but it's been far too long in any case. He is a stalwart champion of liberty and professes patriotism like few others. He is Dr. Stan Monteith. And I didn't know this until recently. For over a decade, prior to his retirement from organized medicine, Dr. Monteith led a delegation of physicians from Santa Cruz County to the House of Delegates of the California Medical Association, the CMA. For 10 years, he led the battle within organized medicine in California to address the AIDS epidemic as a medical issue rather than a civil rights issue. He could not have been more correct. Some of you know, some of you may recall, I was very active in the early years of AIDS, HIV, and my book, which was self-published back then, that was one of the ways you could do it, AIDS Exposed, is still around here and there, and most everything in that book has come to pass. It's all true. AIDS, I believe, was man-made. I don't think there's any question about that. It was designed to depopulate Africa, by and large. Another strain of it was given to American active homosexual males, and I think it was 10 different cities in the HIV, hepatitis B vaccine. It was tainted, contaminated. And the feds, or whoever does it, the black ops boys and girls, sat back and watched it spread, watched how it reacted in the community at large. Well, Dr. Monteith also wrote a book called AIDS, the Unnecessary Epidemic. Very successful. He has a pamphlet still around called To Deceive a Nation, and more recently, A Nation Deceived and Betrayed. And more truer words were never written or spoken. Supported by physicians across our country, Stan's public health approach to the HIV epidemic was eventually accepted by the California Medical Association. Unfortunately, powerful forces within continue to oppose the dictates of the doctors. Dr. Monteith currently, now many of you know this about Stan, spends many hours a day on talk radio in California, which is heard, of course, around the world on the Internet. He writes extensively and lectures on geopolitics and has spent 30 years researching the causes for America's spiritual and moral decline, if not total decimation. Stan, welcome to the program.
It's great to be with you. Actually, it's been 50 years now. I got started in 1962, but it's been amazing. It's an amazing half-century.
Wow.
Thank you so much for inviting us to be with you this evening.
Well, indeed, it's an honor, and we've talked over the years off and on once in a while about things, and I still go back to my amazement at the rapidity by which the controllers have slammed the trap shut on everyone. They got to a point where they knew there would be no real chance for any viable, cohesive pushback from the general public, and so they just let it go right in our faces. They don't play games anymore. No more stealth. They're just doing what they want to do.
Well, that is because they control the media, they control the educational system, they have their people planted in our churches, and as a result, so much of what people believe, what they read, what they see, what they hear, is controlled and altered. But there is a growing awareness because of programs like yours and mine and the Internet and alternative radio. And even though they've infiltrated that, there still is truth out there. And if you know who you can trust, why, I think we're making tremendous progress. I mean, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, I never would have thought there'd be as much or as many informed people as there are today. But there is a growing awareness, and as things get worse, and they're going to get worse, more and more people are going to be looking for answers, and it's important that you and I are there to offer them.
You said something very important, essentially important, and that's for the folks out there, and this audience and your audience have already figured it out, and that's who to trust. Because our alternative media was targeted years ago by the enemy. It has been completely permeated, penetrated. There are an awful lot of people in the alternative media who are working for the other side. Many would never know it, but they are. They're fifth columnists, agents, assets. They only go so far. We call them gatekeepers in this business. So it's difficult. And I look at the print stuff coming out, and I want to again draw your attention, folks, to the European Times, the EU Times. It's a bogus disinformation front, period. And they continue, and I believe it's David Booth who's behind it, but his stories continue to be featured there, and they invariably follow a pattern. I'll leave it to you to find that out. But if you go to the end, there's no byline. Go to the end of the story in the EU Times and look for the word source and click on that. It goes right to David Booth's page, whatdoesitmean.com. I don't mean to give him publicity, but you have to understand who's writing this stuff. And these people have a history of writing materials to serve their masters, whoever their masters may be.
I agree with you, and sometimes even very good people I know within the conservative movement, but they planted somebody in their ministry. I've seen on several occasions where the person's best friend or closest confidant. I'm certain is a infiltrator, and yet I can't say anything. I know they never believe me, but in my heart of hearts, I know that's the case. So we're involved in a great battle, and it's just what a privilege it is to be able to play some small part.
Well, you're playing more than a small part. You are considered to be one of the godfathers of truth. I mean, when people go to Stan Monteith, they're not going to get conned, ever. And that's the kind of thing that we really need to grow and encourage and enhance in our field of work. What is it about the people that has brought them? We've mentioned this already, the media, certainly the control, the so-called entertainment business, the financial depravity most people are kept held under, credit card debt, the whole idea of usury, which is really foreign to any enlightened civilization. We are in such debt now, $60-70 trillion in debt the U.S. is in. It could be higher than that. We really don't know.
I think it's much higher than that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The one thing is, it can never be paid off. Eventually, the whole house of cards is coming down.
Never. Well, eventually, maybe very soon. Now, this is all money that really never existed. It doesn't exist now, except by name, and it never will exist. It's just it's usury. It's debt. It's enslavement. And we know who's behind it. And that's the part that's encouraging, that people are waking up. Now, I never, ever lump all people of any particular persuasion or group together. I won't do that. It's wrong. It's wrong to do. But the international Zionist, Jewish, bankster cartel is unquestionably at the top of the pyramid. That's the eye up there. But beyond that, Stan, there's something else going on. And I don't know how you look at it or how you'd quantify it, but it is evil that may not even be of this planet. There's something going on here that's not human. Now, do we have a whole generation of sociopaths and psychopaths at the top? Maybe. They're acting like it. But I think there's something else there, another dimension of some kind.
You are absolutely right. You know, I started this in 1962. And, you know, as I went to the headquarters of the Council on Foreign Relations, I spent weeks going through their records. I went to Georgetown University. I went to Professor Quigley's papers. I went to Yale. I went to Colonel House's papers. We interviewed many of the key people on film at that time, generals and ambassadors. Professor Sutton has written extensively on this. We had a unique opportunity to reach the people who really understood what it was all about, but none of it made sense until I encountered Constance Cumbie. Do you know Constance?
I know the name. Yeah.
Well, Constance has written about the other dimension that you mentioned, and about, she called it the New Age movement, and introduced me to theosophy and this whole movement that's out there. It permeates every aspect of our life.
Blavatsky and all over. cronies.
Rosicrucianism, the Illuminati, and Freemasonry, and of course the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. This is where it's all coming from. We are fighting a battle. It's a political battle. It's an ideological battle. It's a cultural battle. It's a financial battle. But it's really a spiritual battle. It's being fought on a political, ideological, cultural, and financial battlefield. There really are supernatural forces behind what's going on. And of course, there is an element within the Jewish faith, which of course is, they're called labor Zionists. I frequently interview a lifelong Israeli citizen who studied this subversive movement within the Jewish faith that hates Judaism. But of course, they're using Judaism to push this one world government. But they're working within similar groups within the Protestant faith, within the Catholic faith, and within this supernatural movement I'm talking about. It's not imaginary. In fact, if anybody, and I would simply challenge them to go to the Trilateral Commission website. The Trilateral Commission is the central organization in the United States, probably in the world today, because it has a chapter not only in the United States, but one in Europe and one in Asia. Never more than 87 members in the United States, and yet between 1977 and the year 2009, every president of the United States and or vice president, that is, every president and or vice president of the United States came from those 87 people. 6 of the 8 presidents of the World Bank, 8 of the 10 U.S. World Trade Representatives, 7 of the 12 Secretaries of State, and 9 of the Secretaries of Defense during that period, 77 to 2009, came from this organization. And people don't even understand what the Trilateral Commission is. Go to their website and look at their logo.
Very good.
Circle made with 3 curved sixes. 3 curved arrows.
Yeah.
And if you look closely, you'll see there are 3 sixes joined together in the middle by an upside-down broken cross, the symbol of Satanism.
The idea of Satanism and satanic underpinning and control of the planet is something that, unfortunately, the masses find difficult to accept. Even in the face of some of their rock star icons admitting that they sold their soul to Satan to get where they are. Miley Cyrus, the most current example of that. There have been Bob Dylan. There have been a number of them. We've covered that on the program before. It's not a joke. They've sold out to the dark side, to evil, and in exchange they get fame and fortune and riches. But they have to serve their evil masters. Now that's one thing. The other part of the coin is what I call the cult. And I haven't done as many programs on this as I'd like to. The cult is Satanism. It is satanic. And it is primarily ensconced with blue blood, people of blue blood lineage. And the cult will, of course, choose and sacrifice its own. Not necessarily always to death, but to sacrifice them in other ways, turning them into mind control victims that they control for life. Many of them suicide out. They can't take what's been done to them. They take young boys, young girls, 5, 6 years of age, no more than that, and just ravage them hideously. And each time they're raped, an altered personality is formed in order to protect the basic living psyche of the little child. So these alters are always there. They call them multiple personalities. It's also known as DID now. This is something, Stan, that I think is far more widespread than anyone understands.